الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We continue inshallah ta'ala with the book of Musnad Imam Darimi rahimahullah, and we're still in the chapter of tawarru' عن الجواب فيما ليس فيه كتاب ولا سنة, to abstain from answering or giving answers to questions where there is no dalil or evidence from the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. And as mentioned with the previous narrations, we stopped at narration number 111, but just to make it clear that this is what the original status of a person, that he does not answer unless he have knowledge. And the knowledge, إنما العلم بالتعلم. Knowledge is by learning. So if someone did not learn it, then he should not answer. And when coming to the subject of answering questions, the ilm is قال الله قال رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال الصحابة. Knowledge is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, what the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said, what the Sahaba رضي الله عنهم they said. And the ulama, the people of knowledge, their sources to extract the rulings is from the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, according to the understanding of the early generations of Islam. And we say they are ulama. So they spend their life in studying the deen of Allah with its principles, with the principles that the ulama they established, even in the ways to extract the rulings and so on. Other than the people of knowledge, they should ask the people of knowledge. So if it's the common Muslim, his place to extract rulings is not directly to the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, because he might misunderstand, he might misinterpret it, he might not go through the authentic sources, he does not have knowledge. So the way that he achieved this is by asking the people of knowledge. فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ, and asking the people of knowledge, those who follow what we mentioned just now about who are the people of knowledge. So, and this is a detailed subject, of course, but just to understand these texts or these traditions, the way it's supposed to be done, and shows how it's with what's mentioned before. Once a person gives an answer, that means he is saying about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether it's with knowledge or with ignorance. That's the worst thing that a person can do to himself, to ruin his religion by deceiving people, whether it's with good intentions or not, to say to them that this is what the deen of Allah is, when this is not based on the knowledge of the deen of Allah. And narrating from the ulama, conveying what the people of knowledge, the authentic people of knowledge they said, this is only conveying what they said, but not conveying fatwas from them. And this is another subject. I don't want to talk too many things besides the narrations here. There's difference between the fatwa and the matters of knowledge. Al-fatwa, this is for a specific situation, a specific incident. Not someone asking how to make ruku', how to make sujood. This is something a person learn it, or he conveys what the ulama they say, this is perfect. But when someone is talking about a fatwa, a alim give a fatwa for a specific person, divorce, marriage, a specific country, whatever situations that happens to the people, this is from this alim to the questioner to that particular situation. So no one it's permissible for anyone to convey that and to apply it in a different situation, unless a person is a alim himself. So we have to be extremely careful with these matters, and that's why to search the internet for answers for questions, this is a big mistake for a person to do, especially with fatwa of the ulama. So we continue inshallah ta'ala. He says the number 111, أخبرنا سعيد بن عامر عن ابن عون عن محمد بن سيرين عن علقمة قال جاء رجل إلى عبد الله فقال إنه طلق امرأته البارحة 8. As similar to the previous narrations, a man came to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, and he said that he divorced his wife the day before 8 times. قال بكلام واحد, with one kalam, with one speech, 8 times one after the other. As we said before, even the 3 talaq in one setting, this is bid'ah in the deen of Islam. It wasn't like that at the time of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. At the time of Umar, when people start doing these types of things, he gave him the ruling that the 3 counts as 3, because they are playing with the deen of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the talaq once, and then there's iddah period. And then if he does not take his wife back, then it's irrevocable. If you take her back, that counts as one. There's second chance, there's the third chance. To do them all in one setting, this is not what the Quran says. This is not what the Prophet ﷺ was upon. That's why the Jumhur of Ahl Ilm that it counts as three. And with that, again, this is as far as the hukm. As far as what applies in different countries, in different situations, people ask the people of knowledge in their places, in their countries, in their localities, and so on. So he said, بكلام واحد. He said, بكلام واحد. قال, with one statement, not after sometimes. قال, فيريدون أن يبينوا منك امرأتك. So he said they want them to yubinu, meaning from talaq al-ba'in, to make your wife irrevocable. She cannot go back to you. قال نعم. He said yes. قال وجاءه رجل فقال إنه طلق امرأته 100 طلقة. And another man came and he said that he divorced his wife 100 divorces, 100 times. Whether it's you're divorced like this, or he says to her that you are divorced 100 times. Angry, so he says all kinds of things. قال بكلام واحد, with one in the same speech, he said بكلام واحد. قال فيريدون أن يبينوا منك امرأتك. So they want you to be separated from your wife because this is more than 3. قال نعم. He said yes. قال عبد الله من طلق كما أمر الله فقد بين الله الطلاق. Whoever divorces as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the matter very clear and instructed us, then this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made clear. وَمَنْ لَبَّسَ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ. Whoever then confused the matter for himself, because 100 times, 8 times, all of these times, this is not the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants people to divorce if they want to divorce. So whoever confused the matter for him, وَكَلْنَا بِهِ لَبْسَهِ. That means the matter is not for us, we leave it to him. This is upon him. Don't bring your problems onto us. We're not going to change the religion. You're the one that did what you did of wrong, is basically what he means. He says, وَاللَّهِ لَا تُلَبِّسُونَ عَلَى أَنفُسِكُمْ وَنَتَحَمَّلُهُ نَحْنُ. By Allah, you don't confuse the matter on you, or you put upon yourself something, and then we bear it, and we then bear the sin for it. هُوَ كَمَا تَقُولُونَ. It is as you say. So he's trying to get a way out by the fatwa, by the reply of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Says, you keep it to yourself. That he's not going to change the religion. You did something, then it's upon you what you said. This is a sound narration. He says, أخبرنا سليمان بن حرب قال حدثنا حماد بن زيد عن يحيى بن سعيد عن القاسم قال لأن يعيش الرجل جاهلا بعد أن يعلم حق الله عليه خير له من أن يقول ما لا يعلم. This is one of the statements that doesn't need a person to be very smart to understand the meaning of it. Which he says, for a man to live jahil, ignorant, after he knows the right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon him, is better for him than to say something that he doesn't know about. Right? So it shows how evil it is to say something without knowledge. It's better for the person to be ignorant, but he knows the rights of Allah. Ignorant meanings he doesn't know all of these different aspects of knowledge, but he knows the rights of Allah. He worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, and he applies the obligations and so on. It's better for him than to get into saying about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without knowledge, because this is basically what answering questions means. You're saying about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're not saying your opinion of how the weather is and things like this. You're talking about the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why those who are learning the knowledge, if they don't learn la a'lam, which is the reply, I do not know, they don't learn it, then this is a bad setting for them to learn. A person has, as it's going to be also mentioned, this is the first thing that a person should say, unless he has the knowledge of it. And to have the knowledge of it, also there are very clear instructions and steps to be upon this. But to get used to say, Allah knows best, I do not know, ask someone else, like this. He says, أخبرنا سليمان بن حرب قال حدثنا حماد بن زيد عن أيوب قال سمعت القاسم سئل قال إن والله ما نعلم كل ما تسألون عنه ولو علمنا ما كتمناكم ولا حل لنا أن نكتمكم. Ayub al-Sikhtiyani, one of the great A'imma of the Hadith, he said, سمعت القاسم, and Al-Qasim ibn Muhammad. This is Al-Qasim ibn Muhammad, one of the fuqaha of the early generations of Islam, someone that is well established in matters of ilm among this early generations of Islam. So he said, I heard him, he was asked, and he said, Inna wallahi ma na'lamu kulla ma tas'aluna an. By Allah, we do not know everything that you ask for. We do not know the answer for every question that you ask. And if we know, وَلَوْ عَلِمْنَا مَا كَتَمْنَاكُمْ, if we know, we would not going to conceal it from you, because it's haram to conceal the knowledge. وَلَا حَلَّ لَنَا أَن نَكْتُمَكُمْ, and it's not permissible for us to conceal it. So, and this is in his caliber and status of knowledge, this is what he says. And then he says, أخبرنا سعيد بن عامر عن ابن عون قال سئل القاسم عن شيء قد سماه فقال. Al-Qasim also was mentioned about something that he named or he mentioned. He said, ما أضطر إلى مشورة وما أنا من ذي في شيء, which means I'm not into al-ittirar, or I'm not in the matter of necessity to seek mashura or opinions, and I'm not in this matter in any matter whatsoever. That means I have nothing to give you as a result of your question. So he would only answer based on what you know, and not knowing doesn't mean that he doesn't know an answer to it. But between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is something that might not apply in his situation, where he does not know all the circumstances, which is also part of the knowledge. He might have the knowledge of the mas'ala or the matter, but to that particular person, for the circumstances that it's in it, he does not know exactly the answer to it. It doesn't have to be that he has no idea of it whatsoever. And other things, of course, that comes in place. Because again, once he gives the answer, that means this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from him. And he says, أخبرنا محمد بن كثير عن سفيان بن عيينة عن يحيى قال قلت للقاسم, again said to Al-Qasim ibn Muhammad, ما أشد علي أن تسأل عن الشيء لا يكون عندك وقد كان أبوك إماما. This is actually not the Qasim ibn Muhammad. This is another Al-Qasim. This is the Qasim, he's the son of Abdullah ibn Umar, also one of the great scholars, and he's the son of Abdullah ibn Umar. So when someone told him, it's very difficult for me that you're asked about something that you don't have knowledge about when your father was an imam, Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhum. So then he replied to him and he said, إن أشد من ذلك عند الله وعند من عقل عن الله أن أفتي بغير علم أو أروي عن غير ثقة. What's more intense and what's worse than what you're saying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to those who have understanding and comprehended from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what He wants from us, that an ufti, that I would give fatwa or an answer بغير علم, without knowledge, or أو أروي عن غير ثقة, or I relate or narrate from someone that is not thiqa or trustworthy. Because either he has the knowledge of it or he conveys from someone that has knowledge. So what's worse than what he's saying, that he doesn't have the knowledge of it, that he would say without knowledge, or if he narrates from someone, conveys someone else's, someone that he trusts, his knowledge, there's no problem. But if it's not someone that is trustworthy, then not to convey from him. Then he says, أخبرنا عمرو بن عون قال أنبأنا هشيم عن العوام عن المسيب بن رافع قال كانوا إذا نزلت بهم قضية ليس فيها من رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أثر, they used to, whenever a qadiyya is a big matter, and the word is used for cases, a case. So whenever a case comes down upon them, meaning that it's a very difficult one, complex one, ليس فيها من رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أثر, they don't have a direct أثر or text from the messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم, اجتمعوا لها وأجمعوا, they would get together, اجتماع, they would make, they would meet, not the masses meeting to take votes on it, the people of knowledge meaning, they would all get together, وأجمعوا, and they would have consensus and they would agree upon something. فالحق فيما رأوا, so the truth in what they would see, the people of knowledge. فالحق فيما رأوا, he repeated again, so the truth is in what they said. This athar is weak, but this is what also one of the things that the ulama they mention. That's why you would find, for example, the ifta committee, things like this, from the people of knowledge. This is something that has been established, especially for things that are again new or requires nothing does not have any basis or foundation to it in the religion. The religion is complete, And every matter that happens in the world, there is an answer to it in the deen of Allah. But requires ilm, requires knowledge for those who will be able to extract the principles of it or where it comes from the nusus. So these types of difficult situations, not a person, not one person would find himself the alim to answer, but rather to have the ulama to get together to discuss it and to give the mashura upon it. قال أخبرنا عبد الله قال أنبأنا يزيد عن العوام بهذا. And since these types of things are affecting us, and it's important for those who study the knowledge, even in the masajid, when you have something and people of, say for example, boards, they get together to decide on the matter. Are you people of knowledge? If you're talking about changing a light bulb, that's fine. Paying the bill, that's fine. But making decisions of matters of deen and people get together and they think this is mashura upon, it doesn't work that way. It has to be with people of knowledge, and they also have a huge responsibility upon themselves, and they have to, as the people of knowledge, even if a person has to travel to the end of the world, this is worth it because it's deen. So to show the importance of it. He says, أخبرنا يحيى بن حسان ومحمد بن المبارك قال حدثنا يحيى بن حمزة قال حدثنا أبو سلمة الحمصي أن وهب بن عمرو الجمحي حدثه أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا تعجلوا بالبلية قبل نزولها. Do not be in haste to deal with the baliya. Al-baliya, al-bala, the calamity, the trial, the musiba, the situation that you have to have a verdict in and you don't really know what it is. So do not be in haste before it happens. Do not make up masail and issues before things happen. فَإِنَّكُمْ إِلَّا تَعْجَلُوهَا قَبْلَ نُزُولِهَا. If you do that, if you start thinking, what if this happens? What if that happens? What would be the ruling like this? لا ينفك المسلمون وفيهم إذا هي نزلت من إذا قال وفق وسدد. That means if you do this, then لا ينفك المسلمون وفيهم إذا هي نزلت من إذا قال وفق وسدد. Then it would not be an easy thing for the Muslimin. That means it's not the right thing to do. And when it comes and happens, then among the Muslimin will be those who will be guided to give the right verdict. Don't be in haste. Don't do something before it happens. Don't make a judgment before things happen. When it happens, there will be among the Muslimin, inshallah ta'ala, those who will be guided. وَإِنَّكُمْ إِن تَعْجَلُوهَا. But if you are in haste, تَخْتَلِفْ بِكُمُ الْأَهْوَاء. The desires will make you differ among one another because it didn't happen yet. فَتَأْخُذُوا هَكَذَا وَهَكَذَا. So you become this and that. That means you would have different opinions, disputes. وَأَشَارَ بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ وَعَنْ يَمِينِهِ وَعَنْ شِمَالِهِ. And he pointed with his hand to the right and to the left. This, as far as the hadith, is weak, but this is something that has been mentioned from many of the early generations of Islam, which is something that they would not know by their own opinions only, which is something that the people of knowledge are upon. That's why they used to forbid كثرة المسائل, the too many questions, as the hadith of the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام. So he says أخبرنا محمد بن المبارك قال حدثنا يحيى بن حمزة قال حدثني أبو سلمة أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم سئل عن الأمر يحدث ليس في كتاب ولا سنة. That the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام was asked about something happens that they don't find evidence for it in the Quran or in the Sunnah of the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام. He said قال ينظر فيه العابدون من المؤمنين. Then let the abidun, the worshippers from among the believers, to look into it. And what is meant by that is the people of knowledge, those who are al-abidun. And this is how the significance of mentioning abidun. So not the worshippers, those who are ignorant and just doing acts of worship, of course not. But rather the ulama, those who are abidun. Not someone that has information. Because al-ilm or knowledge is the fear of Allah. So people that have lots of knowledge and they fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and their actions and their speech is upon this, then they are the ones to look into it. And that's why the rukhsah or the ease or the break in a situation is to be asked from the highest level of the ulama, those who are among the righteous ones. Because this is, again, a person has to have the fear of Allah, not to be at ease with saying things of the religion without knowledge. Then he says أخبرنا أحمد بن عبد الله قال حدثنا معاذ بن معاذ عن ابن عون قال قال القاسم إنكم لتسألون عن أشياء ما كنا نسأل عنها. Al-Qasim ibn Muhammad here, he says to the people that you're asking about things that we never asked about before. وَتُنَقِّرُونَ عَنْ أَشْيَاءَ مَا كُنَّا نُنَقِّرُ عَنْهَا. وَتُنَقِّرُونَ, you know, when the crow keeps on picking on the ground, keep on picking on things that we did not used to go deep into it. وَتَسْأَلُونَ عَنْ أَشْيَاءَ مَا أَدْرِ مَا هِي. And you ask about things I do not know what it is. وَلَوْ عَلِمْنَاهَا مَا حَلَّ لَنَا أَن نَكْتُمُكُمُهَا. And if we know it, it is not permissible for us to hide it from you. What does that mean is that they were away from a takalluf. Sahaba, the Tabi'een, they took what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed, applied it. No takalluf, not going into the matter in a way that people don't have knowledge of. And you would find this in many of, even when people ask questions, right? Whether it's in stories or the stories of the Quran is a very clear example of this. They received the stories, they benefit from it, but what was the name of the wife of this prophet? How much the wealth was for Qarun? Does that mean that he went this way and then he returned back that way? You know, things that the Quran did not say. So why you put yourself in a situation where you ask about something that if it was good, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have revealed it. And the same thing with the ahkam, with the rulings that makes the person in a very difficult situation by asking about something that is not, nothing, no revelation in it. And of course, they were forbidden from asking when the wahy was coming down. And after the wahy is finished, yes, people should ask about matters of the deen, but they should be satisfied with the answers if there's an answer, without going into what ifs. What if this happened? What if this happened? And we have the statement of Abdullah ibn Umar. Anyway, so he says, أخبرنا عبد الله بن صالح قال حدثني الليث قال حدثني يزيد بن أبي حبيب عن عمر بن الأشج أن عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه قال إنه سيأتي ناس يجادلونكم بشبهات القرآن. Umar رضي الله عنه, he said, people will come, they will argue with you with the doubts or the shubuhat of the Quran. Shubuhat of the Quran, mutashabihat. That means verses means more than one thing. So they will come to you and argue with you. You know, they would take evidence for whatever they're doing from the Quran. And the ayah can mean this and can mean something else. So he says, فَخُذُوهُمْ بِالسُّنَنِ. Then خُذُوهُم, take them by the sunnah. That means you be upon the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ explains the Quran, because the Quran has many meanings to it, and the way which is the correct meaning is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, what's in the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. فَإِنَّ أَصْحَابَ السُّنَنِ أَعْلَمُ بِكِتَابِ اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. Because the people of a sunan, the ulama of the sunnah, they are the ones that knows best the book of Allah. So there's no such a thing as a alim that he knows the Quran. Yes, his specialty in the tafsir, but what does that mean? Linguistics, verses only? No, he's not a alim of the tafsir, unless he knows the sunnah, unless he knows the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ and the statements of the Sahaba and their understanding. Otherwise, then they will deviate people. And this is what happens even to some of the tafsir. When people only look into the linguistics of things and they are not knowledgeable in matters of sunnah, and people are praised because of their tafsir of the Quran when they are not scholars in the hadith and the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and they just bring whatever they feel with the verses and things like that. And people will argue with ayat of the Quran. So the importance of knowing the sunnah. Then he says, أخبرنا محمد بن عيينة قال حدثنا علي وابن مسهر عن هشام بن هو بن عروة عن محمد بن عبد الرحمن بن نوفل عن عروة بن الزبير قال عروة بن الزبير رضي الله عنه said ما زال أمر بني إسرائيل معتدلا ليس فيه شيء حتى نشأ فيهم المولدون أبناء سبايا الأمم أبناء النساء التي سبت بنو إسرائيل من غيرهم فقالوا فيهم بالرأي فأضلوهم. So he said that the matter of Bani Israel, the children of Israel, were mu'tadilan, they were upon the right and the correct way, the middle course of things. ليس فيه شيء, nothing wrong in what they were upon. Till حتى نشأ فيهم المولدون, till those who came from away from them or other than them, مولدون, from those who came as offsprings from the sons of the slaves and of the nations, other nations, أبناء النساء. So that means it refers to the different nations, those who embraced or followed them, and they did not have the knowledge. It's not to look down upon others, but it's because of how things became widespread, and then people get into the fold of Islam without having the knowledge of Islam. So what happened? They start these deviations. من غيرهم فقالوا فيهم بالرأي. So they start saying things based on their opinions. فأضلوهم. So they led them astray. And the same thing as the Prophet ﷺ, he said, لَتَتَّبِعُنَّ سَنَنَ مَنْ كَانَ قَبْلَكُمْ. You would follow the ways of the people before. And if you look at how deviations happened, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they were all upon one thing. And after that, when the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala became widespread, and then people get into the fold of Islam, mashallah, this is beautiful. But then people start saying things in the deen of Islam based on their previous knowledge of philosophy maybe, or backgrounds or whatever. So they start to say things, and anyone that says anything, he would find followers that would follow him, and deviations happen. So to stay away from this by learning always the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the way it was in the early generations of Islam. Then this is the last narration in this chapter, and this last narration is the isnad of it is sound. Then the next chapter, Bab Karahiyat al-Futya, related to the previous one, the dislike of al-Futya, the dislike of giving fatwas. And of course, some of the positions is like, for example, a ruler. You would find in the deen of Islam that you're almost like forbidden from trying to be a ruler. But people, they have to be ruled. So it's a must. They have to have someone to rule. But it's going to be one person, right? So when imagine everybody, their ambition is to be rulers. What happens? They would fight with each other. So the same thing, the importance and the virtue to have knowledge, this is for everyone. Everyone should seek knowledge. But to be in the position of having the authority to give verdicts in matters of deen, a person should abstain and stay away from it unless it's given to him. This is one of the positions where the people of knowledge will appoint him. And he would say, then this is your responsibility, and then in that case, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help him. And this is how the people of knowledge, Imam Malik and others, he said he did not sit in the position of teaching till he was given that by the people of knowledge. So a person has to remove this from his heart, that he wants to be in a position where people would listen to him and he would give them verdicts and things like this. Different than the intention to spread the knowledge and to have other people benefit from his knowledge. That's a good deed, of course, but to be careful and to be away from longing for something of that nature. It just happens and it be given to him. قال أخبرنا مسلم بن إبراهيم قال حدثنا حماد بن يزيد المنقري عن قال حدثني أبي قال جاء رجل, he said, a man came يوما, one day, إلى ابن عمر, to Abdullah ibn Umar رضي الله عنهما, فسأله عن شيء لا أدري ما هو. He asked him about something that I did not know what it is. فقال له ابن عمر said to him, لا تسأل عما لم يكن. Do not ask about something that did not happen yet. فإني سمعت عمر بن الخطاب رضوان الله عليه يلعن من سأل عما لم يكن. Because indeed I heard Umar رضي الله عنه cursing the one that asks about something that did not yet happen. So again, forbidding from asking things that it did not happen yet, like the what if type of questions. And then after the Tabi'een time, when people start making up masail, making up all kinds of masail. What if this? What if a person, eat this or do this, or things that it does not happen, there's no application to it. When it happens, then they should ask. And of course, this is not in general in every matter. Some things, even when the Prophet ﷺ was asked by the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, what to do when this happens, when there's fitan, when there's tribulations. This is a valid question, of course. But the things that has no benefits in asking, they were forbidden from this. He says, أخبرنا الحكم بن نافع قال أنبأنا شعيب عن الزهري قال بلغنا أن زيد بن ثابت الأنصاري رضوان الله عليه had reached us that Zayd ibn Thabit رضي الله عنه كان يقول إذا سئل عن الأمر. He used to say whenever he's asked about something, أكان هذا? Did it happen? فإن قالوا نعم, if they said yes, قد كان, it happened, حدث فيه بالذي يعلم. He would speak according to the knowledge that he has. والذي يرى, and what he sees. وإن قالوا, and if they said لم يكن, no, it didn't happen, just someone is making up a question, قال فذروه حتى يكون. He would say, leave it till it happens. And this is from the Balaghat of Imam al-Zuhri rahimahullah. And then he says أخبرنا إسحاق بن إبراهيم قال أنبأنا أبو هشام المخزومي قال حدثنا وهيب قال حدثنا داود عن عامر قال سئل عمار بن ياسر عمار بن ياسر رضي الله عنه, he was asked عن مسألة, about a مسألة, matter of the deen. فقال هل كان هذا بعد, did that happen before? قالوا لا, they said no. قال دعونا حتى يكون, leave us till it happens. فإذا كان تجشمناها لكم, then if it happened, then تجشمناها لكم, that means we will put the effort and the struggle for you to give you the answer. And of course based on the knowledge. He says أخبرنا محمد بن أحمد, and as you see it's the Sahaba, this is what they were upon. أخبرنا محمد بن أحمد قال حدثنا سفيان عن عمرو عن طاووس قال قال عمر رضوان الله عليه على المنبر. Umar radiallahu anhu, he said on the minbar one time أحرج بالله على رجل سأل عما لم يكن فإن الله قد بين ما هو كائن. أحرج, that means I make it tight, that means I forbid anyone to ask about something that didn't happen yet, because indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made clear what is going to happen. So don't be asking about things that are of no benefit whatsoever. Then he says أخبرنا عبد الله بن محمد بن أبي شيبة قال حدثنا ابن فضيل عن عطاء عن سعيد عن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما قال ما رأيت قوما, Abdullah ibn Abbas, he said, I've never seen people كانوا خيرا من أصحاب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, they were better than the companions of the messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم, ما سألوه إلا عن 13 مسألة, they did not ask him except 13 مسألة, 13 questions, حتى قبض كلهن في القرآن, till the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم died. All of these questions in the Quran. منهن يسألونك عن الشهر الحرام, they ask you about the sacred months. يسألونك عن المحيض, they ask you about the menses, and the like of these verses that talks about they ask you, O Prophet of Allah. قال ما كانوا يسألون إلا عما ينفعهم, they did not used to ask except what benefits them. The first part of the hadith, because they were forbidden, or the athar, because they were forbidden from asking, because the wahy is coming down. And if they ask, لا تسألوا عن أشياء إن تبد لكم تسؤكم, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbade them, because this can make it obligatory upon them if they ask for it. So they were left and they were forbidden from asking, because the wahy comes down. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He perfects His wahy. There's no need for them to ask for things. But also at the same time, because after the wahy is finished, that's why the last statement here, even the wahy when it comes down, and after the wahy is completed, no one will change anything in the wahy. ما كانوا يسألون إلا عما ينفعهم, they would not ask except what is benefiting for them. So before we answer any question, is there a benefit of the question? Is there a benefit that is going to happen to the questioner? It might be a benefit to people thousands of miles away, for example, right? But does it benefit you? Are you going to convey the message to them? You know, especially when people get into things. What do you say about such and such, or so and so, or what is it benefiting for you? Are you going to be someone that's going to be affected by this and testing people with regards to individuals, nations, whatever situations? What's the benefit from this? Are you going to do something about it? And I'm just making this from my own self like that. But the point here is, ما كانوا يسألون إلا عما ينفعهم. And you would find the questions about matters of aqidah. Where is it? Matters of ibadah, salah, halal and haram. This is what benefits the person that he should know about. He says, حدثنا عثمان بن عمر قال أنبأنا بن عون عن عمير بن إسحاق قال لمن أدركت من أصحاب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أكثر ممن سبقني منهم. He said, those that I witnessed from the companions of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, they are far more from those who left before, meaning that he saw many of the companions رضي الله عنهم. فما رأيت قوما أيسر سيرة ولا أقل تشديدا منهم. He said, I've never seen, especially for those who saw the Sahaba and saw those who came after the Sahaba, and he would see the difference. He said, I've never seen, meaning in the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, I've never seen someone other than them more ease. أيسر سيرة, their life was at ease, they were at ease. ولا أقل تشديدا منهم, and they were the least in tajdeed, in extremism, and being extremely strict. And what is meant by that again is not because people distort terminologies. If someone is praying 5 times a day, to some people he's very strict. This is not what is meant by being strict, meaning they would get into details where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not reveal. Just stick to what's in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. No need to make up things and to get the matter tight for you. Just what's in the wahy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sufficient for us. Versus those who came after and they thought that this is a part of the wara, or to be religious is to keep on going into extremist way of asking about things, and what if this happened and what if that happens, and making up things that it's not the way of the companions radiallahu anhu. He says أخبرني العباس بن سفيان عن زيد بن حباب قال أخبرني رجاء بن حي وقال سمعت عبادة بن نسي أو نسي الكندي وسئل عن امرأة. He was asked about a woman ماتت مع قوم ليس لها ولي, a woman that she died with people that she did not have a wali or a guardian. فقال أدركت أقواما ما كانوا يشددون تشديدكم ولا يسألون مسائلكم. So regardless of what's the question, but it seems like it's a very complex situation. So he said, I witnessed people, they did not used to have this tajdeed, or this extreme and this intense way of dealing with things like you. وَلَا يَسْأَلُونَ مَسَائِلَكُمْ, and they don't ask the like of your questions. He says أخبرنا العباس بن سفيان قال أنبأنا زيد بن حباب قال أخبرنا رجاء بن أبي سلمة قال حدثني خالد بن حازم عن هشام بن مسلم القرشي قال كنت مع ابن محيريز بمرج الديباج فرأيت منه خلوة. He said I was with Ibn Muhayriz, one of the people of knowledge, and he saw فرأيت منه خلوة, he was alone. فسألت عن مسألة, so I asked him about a مسألة. مات فقال لي ما تصنع بالمسائل, what are you doing with the masail? And again, this masail is not necessarily to test the person of knowledge, but something that is of no benefit, something that you're not having an issue with. Right? It's different than teaching it. We have to be clear, of course, when a person is asking about something that is benefiting for him, something that he faced, yes, this is great, mashallah. But to ask about something that is not related to him, he says, قُلْتُ لَوْلَا الْمَسَائِلْ لَذَهَبَ الْعِلْمِ. So I said, if it wasn't for the masail, the ilm will vanish. That's why we need to establish the knowledge by asking so many different masail and questions. قال لا تقل ذهب العلم. Do not say, he replied to him by saying, do not say the knowledge will go away. إنه لا يذهب العلم ما قرئ القرآن ولكن لو قلت يذهب الفقه. The ilm would not disappear as long as the Quran is being recited and learned and understood, but rather say يذهب الفقه. The fiqh will go away, the understanding. Because one of the argument of the masail, or if a alim is making some masail to his students, even if it's not related to them, is to establish in them the understanding of the fiqh. So to have examples for them to understand the principles of fiqh. So this is okay in the settings of learning. But in the settings of someone asked just for the sake of asking, or for himself to make his life more difficult for himself, that's what has been forbidden. But in the settings of learning, for people to get well established in the principles of fiqh, this is definitely a good thing, but also from the people of knowledge. The last narration here, and we'll stop here inshallah in this last one in this chapter. He says أخبرنا سليمان بن حرب قال حدثنا حماد بن سلمة عن داود عن الشعبي إن عمر رضي الله عنه قال يا أيها الناس إنا لا ندري لعلنا نأمركم بأشياء لا تحل لكم. Umar رضي الله عنه, he said, O people, we do not know. Maybe we might order you to do something that is not permissible for you. وَلَعَلَّنَا نُحَرِّمُ عَلَيْكُمْ أَشْيَاءَ هِيَ لَكُمْ حَلَالٌ. And we might forbid for you something that is halal for you. إِنَّ آخِرَ مَا نَزَلَ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ آيَةُ الرِّبَى. The last of the verses that were revealed to the Prophet ﷺ is the verse of al-riba. وَإِنَّ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم لَمْ يُبَيِّنْهَا لَنَا حَتَّى مَاتَ فَدَعُوا مَا يَرِيبُكُمْ إِلَى مَا لَا يَرِيبُكُمْ. And the Prophet ﷺ did not make it clear to us till he died. So leave what is doubtful for you to what is doubtful. And this, it's a weak narration. And the fact that one of the last verses that were revealed is the verses of al-riba. This is true. And the matter is explained, but not all of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they get to hear all of the hadith that is related to the riba and usury. So that's why the matter became well established, and the ilm of it is well established. And the more people introduce things, whether it's riba or not, that requires definitely people of knowledge, but sometimes the matter becomes very complex. And when it's doubtful, leave what is doubtful to what you know for sure that it's halal. This is what the rule of the deen, especially with all of these different doubtful matters. Wallahu musta'an. So we'll stop here, inshallah ta'ala, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us benefit from what we heard. I think for those who want to make salah, there is still like a few minutes, inshallah. We have to apply. The question is no benefit. I said, go ahead. I'm just joking.
Just like happened with this person, right?
Hmm.
Another one is telling him, I told him. Is it a good thing to say like this?
Yeah, when something bad happens to a person and someone else says to him, I told you, he had warned them maybe or advised them, most of the time it's of no benefit. And it makes the person feel miserable. And children, they do that to each other all the time. You know, and that's why a person should stay away from this unless there's benefit. Unless that person would realize, yeah, you're right. That would make him, I should listen next time. But if it's a way to put him down and to show that I'm better than you, I have knowledge when you didn't, I defeated you, in that sense, of course, a person should stay away. And that's why before a person would say that, he should check what's in his heart. Is he trying to step on his brother and to make him feel bad, or he sincerely wants him to make sure that he benefit of what next time he should seek advice and things like this? No. Because also you have to relate it to the qadr of Allah. Because he can reply, you're right, but that's this is what Allah decreed. Already happened, so it's not to be for him to be blamed, especially if he repented to Allah. But if he still didn't get the message, then yes, this is definitely a good thing. Allah. Anything else?
This last hadith we learned one narration from Hassan ibn Ali. So is that similar to this one, how it ends?
No. This is a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. The hadith الصدق طمأنينة والكذب ريبة. And also دع ما يريبك إلى ما لا يريبك. This is hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Yes. And this is even though Umar radiallahu anhu, he said it, and that's how they would narrate also things on the Prophet ﷺ, which leave what you're in doubt of to what you have no doubt of. So to be always on the clear, this is, you know for sure that this is what is right. Once you're not sure, leave it. But when you leave it with ilm. Because a person might be ignorant and have some waswas or some issues, he would forbid what Allah permitted for him. So that's why he should ask the people of knowledge whether this is something doubtful, should I leave it or not? No. Anything else? But again, people should ask, inshallah. I'm not saying that to stop here, inshallah.
If I'm trying to advise my brother about staying away from something, but I think he may not accept before I tell him. Is it better to advise him knowing that he most likely won't?
No. When you advise someone and you know from previous experience, from how you know that person, that if you advise him, he's not going to listen. So should you still advise him or not? You should still advise him, and you should make it in such a way that he would understand what you're saying. And many things, people would not get it from the first instant, but they would get it later. And they would appreciate that someone had advised them. And it's always said to children, you know, if you don't listen to what your parents are saying, you will see it with your own eyes later. Many of them, they don't listen to their parents. You know, he does not understand my situation. He's old, from an older generation. Now it's different, right? If he doesn't listen to this, well, the days will come. He grow up, and many of the people would say, I remember when my father told me this. You know, even though he did not apply it, but the father did a good thing that he conveyed what is right for him, even if he did not apply it. So the same thing applies, and doesn't have to be that every day he has to say the same thing. But as long as he conveyed the message clearly, and this is what is correct, and maybe he would take it, and maybe if he doesn't take it, he would benefit from it, inshallah. Or at least the person relieved himself from the responsibility. الله يبارك فيك. طيب، وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم ربنا وبحمدك، أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت، أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.